Greetings from 3M's global headquarters. I'm Ivan Fong, Senior Vice President, General Counsel, and Secretary of 3M. I'm here to wish the Children's Law Center of Minnesota a hearty congratulations of making a difference in the lives of so many children in foster care. At any given time, the Children's Law Center is providing the representation to hundreds of foster children in Minnesota, and each of them deserves quality legal representation. By providing them with free legal advice, representation, and services, you not only provide them with a voice, but with hope. And I can say from personal experience, representing a foster child is one of the most rewarding forms of pro bono legal services you can provide. Like the CLC, 3M is also dedicated to improving lives in our communities. For more than 2 decades, we've been honored to support and partner with the Children's Law Center to improve children's lives in Minnesota. And we look forward to continuing our long-standing partnership now and into the future.
It is critically important to support the Children's Law Center, as youth in foster care are particularly vulnerable to the consequences of the pandemic. Jones Day is very proud to be a justice sponsor of the Children's Law Center and asks that you consider volunteering or donating to this organization. Thank you.
He has this quote that really stuck out to me. It says, "Every kid is one caring adult away from being a success story." And you are here to help make that happen. There are 800 children and youth that the CLC advocates for. They do the hard work. They amplify their voice in court. They empower them to know their rights by having attorneys who advocate for them. Our goal tonight is to raise $40,000. We want to help fund the important work that's happening every single day at the CLC. Please help us reach our goal. And we have a special program ahead for you this evening. I'm honored to introduce Sunny Bedeau, CLC volunteer attorney. Sunny Bedeau has been a volunteer attorney for 4 years at the CLC. She currently represents 2 different clients on behalf of CLC, and today she's
then to see how much it helps to have their voices heard in court. You can really see what a difference being a lawyer can make in someone's life. The foster care system and the social services system and the court process were more complicated than I thought that they would be. And I didn't come to that from a point of ignorance. I had clerked in district court. I was shocked at how difficult it is and how without Children's Law Center volunteers, how lost kids could end up being. We're here to help kids through what is hopefully the roughest patch of their lives and to let them know that the world isn't totally against them, that people care about each other. One of my clients went through a rough patch, and during the rough patch, called me a lot. Just knowing that somebody was going to answer the phone was really helpful for him to get through that patch. And now that he's through that patch, he never calls me. He knows if he needed to, he could call me as much as he wanted again, but he doesn't need that. And to me, that's a victory. One of my clients is potentially going to get adopted. And the day that I learned that, I would put in the top 5 days of my whole life. I couldn't stop smiling. I hung up with him and was jumping up and down. It was amazing. People should support the Children's Law Center because there's no one else doing this work. There's no one else finding these attorneys and creating a network where they can share information and resources and ask questions. It is emotionally challenging work to do. But if you can do it, it's the best thing ever. And if you can't do it, you can still donate and support Children's Law Center.
Good evening, and welcome to Children's Law Center's virtual benefit. We are here tonight to raise $40,000 of vital funds. These contributions support CLC's ongoing and growing work of representing hundreds of children and youth during the pandemic. Please give generously today. We would not be here tonight without the leadership of our board, and special gratitude to Michelle Grant, last year's board chair, and Alona Rindle, current chair. CLC has sustained its work due to the elevated efforts of our board, law firms, businesses, foundations, and over 130 new supporters since January of last year. I am tremendously grateful that I get to continue to lead this very important work for our community's most vulnerable children. Because of the tenacity of our staff, the dedication of our volunteers, and the generous support of our sponsors and donors like you, we continue to fearlessly advocate for our children. Foster children are our children because they are part of our future. They are our future neighbors, employers, colleagues, innovators, and game changers. And we all are part of the mosaic of support our children need in order to succeed after experiencing devastating trauma and hardship no child should ever experience. I really appreciated hearing from Sonia Beto today about why she serves as a pro bono attorney with CLC. Our dedicated volunteers are the cornerstone of our work. In fact, during the early pandemic, we were unable to provide trainings to new volunteers, and so 29 of our current volunteers jumped on to take an additional case. Wow. Sonia is one of our 340 volunteer attorneys who shares their time and expertise with CLC clients. Later today, we will also hear from Portia, a former CLC client who will share her experience of the county attorney social worker not listening to her. Once her CLC attorney got involved, everything changed for the better. When children are removed from their homes, they are often confused and frightened. They don't know what's happening or why. They don't know that they have a right to attend a court hearing and ultimately have an opportunity to speak with the judge, who then decides the outcome of their case. That's where CLC comes in. Every foster child in Minnesota has the right to free legal representation as soon as they turn 10. And with CLC by their side, our child clients get to have their voice heard, amplified, and considered as major decisions about their future are being made in the courtroom. We hear them, we believe in them, and we show up for them. We have countless of stories that demonstrate how one attorney can positively change the outcome of a foster child's case and ultimately their future. 75% of children CLC represents graduate from high school, a statistic we pride ourselves in because nationally, only 36% of children who grow up in foster care graduate from high school. I invite you to celebrate with us this success because it is a true investment in our children's success. In just a few moments, we will hear from our keynote speaker, Carrie Martin Shelby, who was in foster care as a child and is now a law professor and founder of Daughters Mosaic LLC. She will share how support from adults made all the difference in her trajectory to a successful adulthood, despite the trauma and adversities of experiencing foster care. And like CLC, Carrie believes that all kids in foster care deserve to have someone by their side, someone like CLC attorney. Like many in the service sector, we have faced countless challenges over the past 18 months, and these challenges are not receding anytime soon. CLC has 84 children waiting for an attorney. These children need our advocacy now. We invite you to give generously today. Your support will help us raise $40,000 to meet this moment of heightened need. Our children and youth are counting on your support. I am very excited to share with you that we have just been awarded a $10,000 challenge grant from the Richard M. Schultz Family Foundation. The following gifts will count toward unlocking this additional $10,000. any donation from a new donor, any new or increased sponsorship, any donation from a donor who has not given in 2 years or more, and any increase in annual giving. We have until December 31st to raise the $10,000 in gifts to meet our challenge. You can play a critical role in helping to make sure we win the additional support for our clients. Giving is easy at one.bidpal.net/CLCMN youth, and then click on Make a Donation on the left-hand side. Thank you for listening and for investing in our children. Special thank you to our champion sponsors, United Health Group, Robbins Kaplan's, and to our Justice sponsors, 3M, Jones Day, and Frederickson and Byron. I am now inviting our board member, Zeke Johnson, to introduce our keynote speaker.
Good evening. I am Zeke Johnson, a volunteer and board member for the Children's Law Center of Minnesota. And it is my honor tonight to introduce our keynote speaker, Carrie Martin Shelby. Carrie is an educator, a speaker, and an author. She is currently a law professor at the Washington and Lee School of Law, where she specializes in corporate and securities law. She is also the founder of Daughters Mosaic LLC, which has the mission of assisting daughters through adversity pick up the pieces of their lives to form a beautiful mosaic of peace, purpose, and power. Carrie is also a former foster child herself, and through that experience has made it her mission to assist in the healing of others. On a more personal note, Carrie and I are longtime friends and immediately connected while working together at a law firm discussing our own children and the importance of children. It is through this friendship that I'm able to connect her with the Children's Law Center of Minnesota. Thank you, Carrie.
One of my initial encounters with lawyers occurred when I first became a state. I remember the day as if it were yesterday. I was sitting in my 8th grade class, going through a math lesson, and the school secretary called me to her office through the intercom. I remember walking down the hallway and brushing my fingers against the locker and kind of hearing the clicks of the locks as I was walking past. As soon as I entered my principal's office, I immediately noticed a woman sitting across from her. She gets up and she introduces herself and tells me that she's a representative from the Department of Children and Family Services. I was terrified. I knew exactly what this meant at 13 years old. And she proceeded to explain to me that she was going to ask me some questions about my home life. And for some reason, she seemed to know already about some of the troubling things that were happening at home. So I was afraid to lie to her, but I still had this brewing distrust that I was feeling at the pit of my stomach. So I decided to share half-truths. But even with those half-truths, after the meeting, she put me in her car and we drove to the juvenile court building here in Chicago, Illinois. And upon entering the building, we immediately went into a small room where I met 2 lawyers. And when they started to talk to me, they provided me with a level of ease because one of the lawyers looked directly in the eyes and she asked me, Carrie, where do you want to go? Do you feel safe going home? And the simple act of her asking me this question provided me with a level of control in a situation that epitomizes chaos. So after this meeting, I then went into the courtroom where a judge, of course, determined that it was no longer safe for me to return home. After this proceeding, I ended up living in 2 group homes and 3 foster homes over the course of my high school education. And when I entered the system, I literally only had the clothes on my back. Despite the extreme adversities that I had to endure, I am currently a full professor at WNL School of Law, where I specialize in corporate and securities law. I practiced for 4 years as a hedge fund attorney at Sidley Austin LLP. Prior to entering academia, I went to law school at Northwestern University School of Law. And for undergrad, I went to the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. So upon sharing my story, people automatically wonder, how did she do it? What was the secret sauce that enabled her to persevere? And deconstructing what has led to my current success and what could lead to success in others who have had to endure comparable adversities is part of my lifelong mission. And in doing so, through this process of deconstructing, I've also had to debunk certain assumptions that people automatically make when they hear my story. And so I'm going to spend the rest of this speech sharing at least 3 of these assumptions that I have had to debunk while connecting this process to the larger mission of CLC. So the first assumption that I have had to consistently debunk is that I unilaterally pulled myself up from my bootstraps. This is 1,000% false. I had to rely on an intricate mosaic of people and organizations in order for me to persevere. Certain pieces of my mosaic helped me to access life-changing opportunities. So for example, when I was in high school, I just by chance met a representative from an organization called the Ada S. McKinley Foundation. And he would sit in this room for students where they could actually learn about college and look at brochures and fill out applications. And he would help students with this process. And so I met him. I actually was going to meet one of my friends, not to ask about college, because I was really strongly considering going to the Army. And he said, look, I really think that you can do this. He told me about the Youth in College program, where I could go to school for free as a ward of the state. He helped me to fill out the FAFSA. He helped me to complete college applications and apply for fee waivers and learn about resources for taking the ACT. And if it weren't for meeting him, I don't believe I would have been able to ever go to college. And I don't think I've ever had the opportunity to actually thank him for the role he played in building my mosaic. There were other pieces of my mosaic that had already fought intense battles to break down systemic barriers that would have tanked my ability to succeed. So when I was in law school, I actually met advocates who fought to increase the age of emancipation for foster youth to 21 years old. You could imagine that at 18, it would be close to impossible to secure things such as medical insurance. And so these advocates who increased to that age were a huge piece of my mosaic in enabling me to persevere. On a more personal level, my parents gave me so many gifts that transcended the trauma of our stories. My older sister has always been there as a source of support to kind of root for me, to pull me up when I felt the weight of my trauma pulling me down into an abyss. My friends and even strangers helped me when there was absolutely no one else to turn to. Now, some of the most integral pieces of my mosaic taught me that I was, in fact, its most important piece. For many years, I couldn't even hear my own voice. I couldn't understand my own identity. So organizations and individuals, lawyers, helped me to access who I was as a person. And it helped me to understand that I, Carrie Martin Shelby, hold immeasurable value. So it is for all of these reasons that I have since founded the Daughters Mosaic LLC to help others who are facing comparable adversities to pull together their broken pieces to form a beautiful picture filled with power, peace, and purpose. And that brings me to the second assumption that I have had to debunk about my story. And that assumption is that I am exceptional. Now, I admittedly take great pride in the massive gifts that I bring to any table. Building my confidence is a huge, huge part of my healing journey. Knowing that I am entitled to prosperity and joy despite my background has been a game changer in terms of bringing my dreams into fruition. However, I am not exceptional in terms of measuring my raw intellect and talents in comparison to other current and former foster youth. While I was in the system, I encountered countless sons and daughters who were doing amazing things. I remember in one particular group home, there was a daughter who was going to school while working part-time and applying to college. I remember another daughter who was receiving all of these academic accolades, and we were actually in the same grade, and she was applying to high schools, and she got into this really incredible high school. So despite the agonizing intensity of our pain that we carry in our hearts and on our backs, that pain is mirrored by equal amounts of courage and talent and gifts. They motivated me to keep fighting. Their perseverance made each of my own pieces even stronger. So it goes without saying that we are more than our trauma. Massive pools of talent are being lost by systemic barriers to our collective success. We should not have to constantly face seemingly insurmountable hurdles just to access things such as food, shelter, and safety. We should not have to experience extreme levels of additional trauma while the state is serving as our guardian. We should not have to rely on luck or chance to experience lasting joy and prosperity. My personal success as someone who has experienced foster care should be typical, not the exception. This brings me to the third and final assumption that I have had to debunk. And this assumption is that my current success somehow negates or cancels the prior traumas that I have experienced. Truthfully, I have found great peace in what I have been able to achieve and build at this juncture of my life. But it does not negate the prior traumas that I experienced as a youth in care. I still mourn who I could have been or what I could have achieved if it weren't some of the additional traumas that I experienced as a youth in care. I think about the freedom from fear that I could have experienced at an earlier age if I did not have to go through those additional traumas. I recall, for example, being put back in one particular foster home, even though I found the courage to actually report some of the abuse that I was experiencing. It took the will of a lion to do that at that age. And even still, I was placed back in this same home. And all too many of us can share this same story. I eventually left this home by my own volition. I remember fleeing really late at night, and my sister and a friend kind of helped me to gather my belongings. But I'll never forget the unauthorized absence label that was then kind of plastered throughout my file. I remember having more caseworkers and lawyers and other providers, more than I could conceivably remember. Now, the great ones were extraordinary and they helped me so much. But having to encounter so many people all the time in so many homes made me feel invisible and worthless. While I place great value in my ability to pull together the pieces of my mosaic, I fully acknowledge that some pieces should have never been broken. Recognizing this painful truth helps me to see that there's still much work to be done in terms of improving the lives of youth in care. So that brings me to the conclusion. I sincerely hope that my story could be used as a lens to better understand what youth in care are currently experiencing. I also hope that it could help you to fully understand the extraordinary value of each of your contributions. Becoming a part of someone else's mosaic reaps rewards that ripple across generations. The Children's Law Center of Minnesota is a vital part of the mosaic of countless children. Join me in supporting the work of this small, lean organization that represents and advocates for youth and children in foster care. Giving tonight is simple. You can simply click the link that is provided. Thank you so much for your support.
We did a lot of activities as a family together. And then my parents split apart, and then my dad died. At that point, my mom entirely just gave up on life. She became a heavy drinker and got numerous DUIs, and we would wake up in the morning, she wouldn't be there, and then she would be gone for days at a time. As a very young kid, I'm thinking in my mind, how can I get a job so that I can help pay the rent? We ended up living with my grandmother, but then my mom got out of prison for her DUI, and we went back to live with her. For my mom to be gone for 2 weeks at a time was normal, and we had an eviction notice on our door. My aunt came to the house, and the sheriffs are there. He's asking us where my mom's stuff is at, and all of my mom's stuff was gone. She left us. Nobody wants to be a teenager and have all that dysfunction. It's embarrassing. You don't feel normal. The point that really led us to foster care was that I tried to kill myself. I just wanted the pain to end. I ended up going to the psych ward for maybe about 2 months, and then grandma became our foster parent. Me and my grandma, we just didn't really get along. I didn't have a problem calling out if I felt like I was being mistreated. No adult wants to deal with that. So my grandma ended up saying that I could no longer stay there. To go from a very unstructured environment where you basically had to raise yourself to then going to the structured environment where these adults wanted to tell you what to do, it was difficult. It was hard. I did get a reputation for being a bad kid just because I was very outspoken. I would call people out on mistreatments that I went through.
If you are a kid who's struggling with authority and getting into a little bit of trouble and you're in a middle-class family, it all stays in the household and you get forgiven. And it isn't under the radar and the microscope of a social worker and a county attorney and a guardian ad litem and a judge. Fairly garden variety adolescent behavior that is magnified because these kids are hurting so badly starts to become criminalized.
The next thing is I get a new social worker, and the very first meeting that I had with this social worker, she decided to send me to this facility called Elmore Academy. Her reasoning is that she felt like I needed a break. I can honestly tell you, she just didn't want to deal with me. She didn't care anything about what I was saying.
What I think nobody appreciates about what our clients face in terms of their situation and how the court system works. There's nobody and no way that's tasked to actually have the kid's voice.
She was trying to get me to go back to a foster home that was abusive, and I was basically telling her about the abuse, and she's coming back and countering it with like, oh, your foster mom said this, and I'd have to tell her like, no, that's not true, and I refused to go back to that foster home. So that's when she sent me to Elmore Academy.
I looked at her file and it was heartbreaking, and I couldn't imagine how she had navigated that.
When I first met Denise, I was very hesitant, and I thought that I was just going to be another case file to this woman.
My immediate impression with her was this is an incredibly resilient person, and this is somebody who's going to get through this. She just needs a little bit of help.
She took me underneath her wing to not just advocate for you in court, but to advocate for you in life.
I was inspired by her. I was excited by what could be her future if we could help her navigate the system.
I had never been to a court date, and I had asked numerous times to go to the court dates. I would call my social worker and ask her, and then she would say that they already had the court date. Denise made it happen. She made sure that I was there.
Because I'm the lawyer, the social worker would respond to me because the social worker would know that it was going to land in the courtroom if we didn't work it out.
She actually took time out of her day to sign me out on day passes where I could go and hang out with her at her law office. I just felt like she went above and beyond in being a mentor to me.
It's not only, am I somebody that Portia can look outside of her family and see there's another way to live, but I also think the fact that I'm consistently there, and it's my job to be consistently there, I think that started to be impactful.
I went from where I was just accepting what was happening to a point where I realized that I did have power and I could make changes in my life that I wanted to make.
She was starting to move towards needing to be a self-supporting adult and doing all the transition into like living on her own and independent living skills. And I was able to be her voice in terms of how that was going, what she wanted it to look like. I mean, the whole reason people have lawyers is they need to move on to with their lives while people are dealing with the courtroom part. The same thing for these kids. Having that taken off of her plate, I think is really impactful in terms of her being able to say, I'm working on my school stuff, I'm working on my relationships. They can live their lives.
My experience with the Children's Law Center was amazing. It was liberating. I don't think that I would be where I am today if I didn't have my lawyer. I still have a relationship with my lawyer, and I absolutely adore her. I know that at any point in my life, I could contact her. She came into my life and became a part of my life.
In Minnesota.
That's big. That's huge. And then what's next?
What's next? So $4,000 provides training and support to.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Kathleen. Powerful. 2,500. That'll go a really long way. 25 new volunteer attorneys.
Yes, it's incredibly generous. And then $1,500. Then the next is $1,500.
Okay.
And this provides training for 25 new attorneys and outreach dollars to help support youth at CLC. And this is just an exceptional gift for CLC for this, all the different changes that we've all experienced.
Yes, and we see so much generosity from these names you just named. And there's another just big announcement about generosity here, right?
Yes. So the Richard M. Schultz Foundation gave us a challenge grant. So we have to fulfill some criteria to get the grant, but they really believe in supporting nonprofits and helping them build their donor bases. And so their criteria are any new donor gift will go towards that $10,000.
Okay.
Any for a very nice hand-picked selection, this is for you.
74 bottles. And then the other cool thing is it also includes a $500 tasting for 20 total wine and more. So you can actually have your own little wine tasting party. Then you have an entire collection. This is exciting.
Yes, you bring your friends, all of that. And so the current bid for the wine collection is $500. But you know, I think we could get it up to $600 right now. So I think there should be
a steal.
Yeah, that is a steal.
I mean, just the wine tasting is $500. Then you get 74 bottles on top of that.
Correct.
That's insane.
So I think some folks are maybe you're a little nervous, maybe you weren't sure. I think you should really put your bid in there.
Up the ante here.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. And then there's another one too that we want to talk about that you said already is getting so much attention.
Oh my goodness. So we have this 5-day stay in Whitefish, Montana, a ski getaway. I know we're all antsy, and he's offering with 3 folks. And I think just a really great opportunity to have some of that connection that we're all looking for right now.
Do we have a bid already?
We don't have any bids, so you should get in there.
All right.
And get your lunch, your networking session with Dan Santos,
Yeah.
General Counsel at UCare.
Top legal mind there. And UCare, you know, I was talking with an employee there the other day. I mean, it is a fascinating time in the insurance industry.
Yeah.
So this would be a really powerful discussion, I'm sure. Well, everyone could use a getaway, as we're talking about. Now we're going to talk about actually just doing a staycation. If you've been to the Mall of America, which you have, the JW Marriott is a place where you can just go. JW Marriotts are fabulous. I mean, they're really, really nice. Chair and CLC volunteer attorney. She's done this for over a decade. How wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. We know you're so busy and you're volunteering. And I mean, who better to have insight on the importance of this organization?
Right. So if you're interested in volunteering with CLC, you want some legal tips on her career. She is a very bright, bubbly person, easy to connect with. This is a great opportunity for you to connect with Karen. She's also the ACC chair and has just been so generous to CLC.
Great.
So take her up on it. Start bidding on her lunch.
Absolutely. And then this is neat. This part, this is always special because the CLC staff kind of customizes, curates a package.
Correct.
For y'all. And one of the things this is like my 4th year here with y'all. And one of the things that is really special about this, I mean, I know you have self-care wellness things, essential oil diffuser, great collection of candles.
And so that is at $350.
Okay.
So I think we could get that up.
I think we could too. This is wonderful.
Absolutely.
These are great items. I can't wait to see what people bid. And it's just special. Right. I mean, the items are great, but at the end of the day, like, you're helping these children trajectory for their life. How important.
Yes. And CLC staff, they all gave something into this basket, thinking of you and having a nice, relaxing day or a week. And so I just want to second and just say thank you for all the generosity, all the bidding.
The Heroes for Children Award is the first one. We just talked about the heroes that our attorneys are.
By all of you leaders, fierce advocates around Minnesota who are working to improve the lives of children and families. I'm grateful to be with you tonight and grateful for this award. I look forward to a lot of good work ahead. Children are our hope, our future, and we have a lot to be excited about. Thank you.
To 2015. Now, clinical law faculty there in special positions as professor. She's done so much work in her 30-year career. Jean has taught close to 500 law students to be advocates for children. I mean, this is a gift that keeps on giving. Her impact is felt around the state throughout the profession, and her students are so inspired by her work. In her work for the Child Advocacy Clinic, Jean Sanderson is always eye of the storm. She built that clinic in order to train student lawyers to similarly focus on the defenseless little people made up by kids who have been in hard family situations. Now, she has a heart of gold, as you've probably figured out by now. She's a problem solver, a terrific example of lawyers in training. That is her reputation. Tonight, we honor Jean Sanderson for her many years of dedicated work on behalf of Minnesota's children. Congratulations, Jean.
Hello. It is an honor to wrap up this fantastic evening. Children's Law Center's 26th Annual Celebration of Champions. My name is Alona Rindal, and I am serving as CLC's board chair this year. I have been representing youth in foster care for nearly a decade because I strongly believe that it is our responsibility to care for our children. To all the supporters watching, our deepest appreciation and gratitude. I speak on behalf of my fellow board members, CLC staff, and volunteers in sharing our deep gratitude for your generous gifts and support. Your donations and advocacy are needed now more than ever. Special recognition to Portia for bravely sharing her CLC story, and to Sunny Beddoes for telling us why she represents youth in foster care. As keynote speaker, Carrie Martin Shelby said, all children deserve joy and prosperity, no matter what their circumstances. Let's work together to create a better future for our children. Thank you again.
Now we're winding down the evening right now. We just want to thank our award recipients. We want to thank the attorneys who do the hard work. We want to thank those who shared their personal stories tonight. And we want to thank you for watching. It's time we get an update on numbers. Where are we at, Amanda?
All right. So with everyone coming in and generous donations coming in, we are at 29,210.
Okay.
So
we got about 10,000 left to go.
We've got about 10,000 to go, and I think this is doable.
There's still time.
There's still time to get your bids in. The silent auction doesn't close until tomorrow.
Okay.
At 6. And you can make your donation tonight. You can make your donations tomorrow. And thank you for getting those in.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to thank people so much for tuning in and being with us tonight. And I just want to close here with a quote that I love from Maya Angelou. It says, if you find it in your heart to care for somebody else, you will have succeeded. And just the time you've given us tonight, some of you, the money, and just the support, the energy that you put behind this group, and for all of you who do this work day in and day out, we thank you so much, because what this is about at the end of the day is the joy, prosperity, and peace of our children. Thank you for giving.